Hello and welcome back. I'm Carl, the piano tutor, and today we're diving a little deeper into rhythm and note values. The concept of how long to hold certain notes is not difficult in and of itself. We can look at a quarter note and memorize the fact that we can hold it for one beat. It's when we try to read the rhythms with a steady beat in a certain order. While playing the piano, that can get tricky. So today, aside from introducing eighth notes, the rule of dot and rests, we'll make sure to get a lot of practice with different rhythms. Before we talk about eighth notes, let's do a quick 5-second review of our basic note values. We have a quarter note that gets one beat, a half note which gets two beats, a dotted half note which gets three beats. And for the whole note, it is held for four beats. But what if we wanted to play notes that are faster than a quarter note? Well, that's not a problem. We just have to split the beat in half or subdivide. When we split the quarter note in half, we are left with two eighth notes. Get a half of a beat, and they're usually grouped together in twos and fours with a beam. But if they happen to be by themselves, then an eighth note will have a flag. Two eighth notes take up as much as one quarter note. To count eighth notes, we subdivide the beat, and we do that by adding to our numbers. Here's an example with the quarter notes and a 4/4 time signature. Now, normally we just count it as 1, 2, 3, 4. But let's change all this to eighth notes. And now we subdivide and count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. It's the same tempo or quarter note pulse. We're just adding in an extra and in between, like 1 and 2 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's get some practice tapping and counting rhythms with 8 notes in them. Here's the first example. We're in 4/4 time signature. And we start out with quarter notes. It might be tempting to begin counting without subdividing the beat and just count it as 1, 2, 3, 4 without the ends. However, if you see that you have 8 notes anywhere in your music, I would always start subdividing from the beginning. With the labels in place, we start counting by 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Good. Now we're going to tap out the beat while we count it out loud. Here's our steady beat. And we'll count ourselves in and then begin 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Good. Let's try one more time and 3, 4 time signature. So here's the study pulse. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and. How did you do? Remember, you can always rewind if you want to try that again at your own pace. Now we move on to the rule of the dots. When we learn our foundational note values, we learn that the dotted half note gets 3 beats. But why though? What does a dot do? Well, a dot adds half of the note's value back to the note itself. In this case, without the dot, it's just a plain half note and gets 2 beats. But when we add a dot, we need to add half of a beat of the half note itself. Half of 2 beats is 1 beat. So 2 plus 1 equals 3 beats. And that's why the dotted half note gets 3 beats. Now, what if we have a dotted whole note? Now, a whole note gets 4 beats. If we add a dot, we need to add half of 4 to itself. Half of 4 is 2. So 4 plus 2 equals 6 beats. This is how much a dotted whole note gets. Now, I'll give another example. How many beats do a dotted quarter note gets? Well, a quarter note gets 1 beat. Then we know that a dot adds half of that to itself. So what's the half of 1? A half. To calculate, you start with 1 beat plus a half, and that equals to a 1.5. Now that we know how to count eighth notes, we know that we count 1 and 2. We leave out the end for this one. Now let's try counting and tapping an example with some dotted quarter notes. Of course, we have to label the beats first, which, as you can see, I already have it here. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Good job. Now on the opposite side of sounds lies silence. Silence is a powerful tool that can convey a bunch of different emotions or feelings, and we notate silence with rests. Let's look at the rest equivalents to the note values that we already know. Quarter rest is 1 beat of silence. Half rest is 2 beats of silence. To convey 3 beats of silence, we have 2 options. Use a half rest with a dot, but the more commonly used is a half rest and with a quarter rest. Now we move on to the whole rest, which is 4 beats of a silence. But it's partly true. A whole rest gets 1 full measure of rest. Since we know the basics of time signatures, we know that the amount of beats in a measure can vary depending on what note is on top. With 4/4 time signature, there are 4 beats. However, for a 3/4 time signature, a whole rest will only get 3 beats in every measure. Lastly, we have the 8th rest. And you'd probably guessed it that the 8th rest gets half a beat. And we count it in the same way as we do with 8 notes. Are you ready for the ultimate rhythmic challenge? Let's do a rhythm that incorporates everything that we learned today. Whenever you see a rest instead of a tapping, just shrug off and keep your hands apart when you encounter a rest. Also, make sure to watch out for the changing of time signatures. Here's the rhythm. Take a minute to look it over, pause the video before we proceed. Now let's move on with the steady pulse. Get those hands tapping and shrugging. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and... Okay, so how did you do? It's a little tricky, but you'll get used to it. And that is all for this video. I hope you learned something. Anything you want to add up, let me know or comment down on the comment section below. Until then, catch you all on the next lesson.